Hello everyone, welcome back to another Magic the Gathering video. We are starting, and very much quickly finishing, the Urza's Destiny set. We went from 31 cards in the last set of Portal 3 Kingdoms. We're jumping straight back down to 2 commanders for Urza's Destiny. So let's get right on into it. Today we're talking about Rayne Academy Chancellor, which is a legendary human wizard. It is a 1/1, and it costs 2 generic mana and 1 blue mana. It has a paragraph of text here. Whenever you or a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you may draw a card. You may draw an additional card if Rayne, Academy Chancellor, is enchanted. So a nice deterrent against your opponents. Targeting your stuff, not necessarily hexproof. Let me move my camera back over from the set review. Not necessarily a powerful form of deterrent like ward or hexproof, but it is a deterrent because you can always remind your opponents, hey, if you do this, I'm going to draw maybe up to 2 cards for every creature you target. So, like, maybe you don't want to do that. So, cool political power. Oh, and I gotta get back over here. Mouse, come into play. Thank you. Rules for this card. So there are a couple rules to note here. I'm gonna turn my head way over so I can read this properly. If a spell or ability targets multiple permanents you control or targets you and 1 or more permanents, this triggers once for each such target. And I'll read the card again. Whenever you or a permanent becomes the target of an ability your opponents control. So that does care about how many targets, and that could be something you could use to your advantage. If your opponent has something where it targets multiple things of yours, including yourself, it will trigger multiple times. Very cool, very powerful. The if of the card text does not have a special meaning. You check if the card is enchanted when the ability resolves and draw 1 or 2 cards. I don't really know where that would apply, where that question would come up, but essentially, as long as Rayne is enchanted, you will be able to draw 2 cards instead of just the 1, is essentially what it is. Just make sure that Rayne is enchanted when your stuff gets targeted and when the ability resolves. For example, if it is enchanted and then those triggers are on the stack and then someone blows up the enchantment before those resolve, when they resolve, it's no longer enchanted, so you'll only draw the 1 card. However, if it is enchanted, whether it be by your enchantments or your opponent's enchantments, it doesn't care who enchanted it. It just wants to be enchanted. And then when casting an aura on this card, the triggered ability will resolve before the auras enter the battlefield. Now that is of course referring to when your opponents cast an aura targeting your commander. You will draw 1 card because it's not yet enchanted. The enchantment is on the stack targeting Rayne. And of course you won't draw the card when targeting with an aura because it only triggers when your opponents target your stuff. So that is specifically if your opponents enchant Rayne, you will draw 1 card before the enchantment is attached, or 2 if your opponents have already attached 1 onto it. And then an enchantment I thought was cool and synergized well with this commander is Vanishing. You'll want to be careful with this card because to some extent you don't want your creature phased out when your opponents are targeting all your other stuff, because if it's phased out, it's not going to be able to trigger. However, it is a fantastic form of defense for this card, because if someone tries to board wipe the board, then you can just phase your creature out, and when it phases out, it's not going to lose any of its enchantments and stuff because it didn't leave the battlefield. It just isn't considered to exist. So it will survive the board wipe, it'll keep its enchantment on it, and then of course when it phases back in, it'll be there enchanted, ready for you to draw cards when it gets targeted by your opponents. Very cool card. The deck that I have this commander being in is kind of a weird control deck. And more specifically, it's like a hate bears deck. It's supposed to have cards that like will work against certain cards of your opponents, and the deck forces your opponents to play those certain cards, whether it be red cards or green cards or instant cards or sorcery cards. But a lot of the cards that I found that synergized with this theme were actually just like bounce and tap shenanigans. So that will be aspects of the deck, but it does focus more on like preventing your opponents from doing things, almost like a stacks deck, but only in certain categories. And then a popular deck idea on EDH Rec is, of course, enchantment, Voltron-y, shenanigans. Suit up your commander with as many enchantments as possible. Your opponents are going to try everything in their power to get rid of it, and every time they target it with a destroy spell or an exile spell, you're going to be able to draw cards before it resolves, so you might be able to draw into like a counter spell or a protection spell and be able to play it and interact. It's just very powerful and hard to deal with as far as a Voltron commander goes. And then lastly, was this like, we're gonna steal your oh, how did I word this before? It's a redirect deck, and the whole concept is every time your opponents do something, because half the deck is gonna be like, oh, they're gonna interact with our board, with our opponent, with the other players' boards, but the other half of your opponent's decks are going to be things that help them progress the board state, help them win their game. So what if we built a deck that's like a theft deck in blue, but it's all about stealing spells and abilities instead, and redirecting things so that you get targeted and so you get the advantage of them, and you get to draw the cards from them as well. So if someone were to play something where it's like target player searches their library for a card, you'd be like, oh, I'm going to change the target to me. Now, I'm going to do that thing, and because it's an opponent's spell that's now targeting me, I'm going to draw one or two cards as well. So very fun, full of shenanigans, and I think this would be a lot of fun. It'd be a very weird deck because it's very heavy on what your opponents are doing, but I think this could be a lot of fun. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. And that is going to do it for Rayne Academy Chancellor. It is a unique form of deterrent against your opponents, like targeting you or targeting your stuff. However, it doesn't actually stop what your opponents are doing. Because if they target your stuff and you don't draw a counter spell or a stifle or a way to protect you or your stuff, you're still going to draw a card, but then the thing is still going to resolve and happen. So it is cool, it is powerful, but just be mindful that it doesn't actually protect your board, it just gives you card advantage. So it's not really a deterrent, it just encourages your opponents not to give you extra cards when they do stuff to you. So, but very cool, very powerful commander, very, very powerful. But not a whole lot of deck ideas that I found aside from that. Actually, I think I found quite a few. I'll have to see when I do the tier list video, which will be very soon. So let me know in the comments below what you guys think, if there's any deck ideas I didn't talk about, or cards that synergize with Rayne. And make sure to hit that bell to get notified, because we got one more commander for this set, and then we're doing the set review. So very quickly getting through this set. Anyway, thanks again for all your support, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!